welcome to my humble abode. I'm Yoki the Tail Spinner, and this Tales Over Coffee. We start the day together with a narrative game and a cup of coffee in the hope of lugging a blessed day. I'm turning now to a game called Ukraine War Stories. It's a free game on Steam, bringing us tales of the Russian invasion of Ukraine told through Ukrainian eyes. It's a series of visual novels. I don't know how deep the choices are, but I want to hear the tales that come from Ukrainian citizens themselves. So without further ado, let's look at the first story. And Slava Ukraini. Hostomel. Evening in February. I see it's not voiced over, so that is one thing. This is free, as I say. By Starni Games, a Ukrainian games developer out of Kyiv. Alexei. It's barely past 1700. But it was getting dark already. Spring was on its way in, but we were still getting early sunsets and cold nights. Another quiet evening in the house that was entirely too big for just me and my Lilia. Ever since her daughter had settled in Kiev, no surprises there, Hostomel was always too small for her. She still kept in touch with us. In fact, that evening, I was just trying to figure out a present from her, a smartphone. He's older than I am, and I get that feeling. Well, I wasn't trying anymore. I delegated the task to the neighbor's girl, Milena Mirzoyan. Milena is a bright girl, top of her class at the medical university in Kiev. Much younger than my own daughter, Katya, barely in her 20s, quick-witted and full of life, unlike me, a tired old man. I've been an aviation engineer for 40 years before retiring, and yet these modern gadgets are beyond anything I've worked with. Now my wife Lilia, she's a savvy one, but that evening she was preoccupied. Alexei, she said in a worried voice. Alexei, have you heard what Putin is saying? He recognized those republics in Donbass. She clutched at her chest. Oh God, the Russians are going to invade. I looked over to see her watching a Russian broadcast on YouTube, and I could only roll my eyes. For the last few weeks, what Putin was saying was everyone's favorite gossip. That a big war was coming. That the Russians were finally going to invade in full force. That's why Milena left Kiev a day ago, and came to join her parents in Hostomel. Many people fled the capital in the last few days. It was as if everybody expected Kiev to be bombed off the face of the earth. Lilia, please, nothing's going to happen, I said, when I caught Milena's glance. She was afraid too. Mr. Borisov, they've got so many troops on our borders, they wouldn't keep them there if they were just bluffing. That's exactly how bluff works, child, says Alexei. We have nothing to fear because... Right time to attack has passed. Putin will try to annex Donbass at most. Putin invades the UN will eat him alive. He doesn't have nearly enough forces. All these will give a boost to her mood. And Lilia's mood. International law still applies. I don't think you would say that given the invasion of the Ukraine, the Crimea in 2014. There's been some sanctions after that, but not much. He can't take the entire Ukraine with so few men. Faith in the troops. He doesn't have nearly enough forces. If his generals can count, they'll tell him 200,000 men isn't enough to take the entire Ukraine. I tried giving the girls a reassuring smile. In retrospect, it may have looked a little smug. You know, said Lilia, at least I took first aid courses and stocked up on some gauze. That'll be useful, right, darling? She looked at Milena, who replied with enthusiastic nodding. You could have done something useful as well, instead of buying more model planes. Chastised much? I just chuckled, says Alexei. I could tell she was just worried. She didn't mean it one bit. Look, if you're so worried, I'll go get the car fueled up. Say, on Thursday? We weren't using our car much, except to buy groceries. So the near empty tank didn't seem like an issue. With my bum leg, I barely left home anyway, and Lilia worked as a teacher. Her students were all on distance learning. Ah, yes. Good old COVID around that time. Well, I say good old, bad old. Then we'll have to go on vacation in the Carpathians. 2 weeks. Until this whole deal resolved itself. And you'll see that I was right. Stocking up on fuel is a good idea, Melina chimed in. My dad is stocking up as well. Before the prices rise even more. I nodded. I didn't believe war was coming, and if I did, could I do anything to prevent it? Well, there was something I could do. Help everyone stay calm, says Alexei. Right, Military moves up. There was a deafening noise outside, wrestling me from sleep instantly. At first, I didn't believe my own ears. I thought I hadn't woken up at all, and this was all a nightmare. Then I heard the noise again. Explosions. Oh God, Lyosha! They're bombing the airfield, says Lilia. Look, those helicopters are shooting rockets. I looked around and saw my wife, who was already running toward the window. Did she hear it first? She was always the quicker thinker between the two of us. After a night of sleep, stepping on my bum leg felt even worse than usual. I limped towards Lilia and looked out of the window. I didn't have the eyesight to make out the details, but I saw helicopters swarming over the Hostomel airfield, launching bright flares all around them. Not rockets, flares. They do it so our soldiers don't shoot them down. They're fixing to deploy the airborne troops. Lily covered her mouth with her hands and looked at me. I don't think I've ever seen her so confused and scared. Pack our things. We might have to leave the town. As my wife ran around the house packing up everything of any value, I was trying to process what had happened. The war had begun. I had seen it with my own eyes, but I still couldn't comprehend it. I was so convinced that Russians would never act upon their threats. What a fool I've been. There was gunfire coming from the airfield. It snapped me back to reality. I had to do something. When I went to check up on Lily, I saw her hands were shaking. I had to calm her down, or at least make sure that she didn't forget to pack anything important. On the other hand, I never got around to refueling our car, and only had enough petrol to drive to the nearest fueling station. I think we need to get packed up. Make sure we didn't forget anything. With a sigh, I joined in Lily in packing up our things. We couldn't afford to forget anything, as we didn't know where we'd eventually end up, and if getting supplies would be a problem. We talked very little. I felt enormous shame for claiming just a few days ago that the war wasn't coming. Lily didn't accuse me of it, but I only felt worse because of it. I would have liked her to state the obvious, that I was a big damn fool. But no. When we were done, she just sat on the bed, her hands wrapped around her shoulders, and stared out of the window. As I checked my bags, I noticed that we didn't pack our medkit. Without telling Lily anything, I just quietly went to the kitchen and retrieved our medicine. That should be all. I put my hand on my wife's shoulder. The shooting outside had quieted down, and everything seemed to be normal again. But it didn't stay that way. Come evening, the shooting around us got so loud. Leaving by car seemed to be suicide. Our only option was to wait for the president's address and hope the situation gets clearer before the weekend. Medicine increased, but Alexei's mood is down, and couldn't be surprised about that. Alexei, what will we do? Lilia complained, sniffling away the last of her tears. Did you hear it? Did you hear how loud it was? How terrible? I nodded and hugged Lilia closely. I sure heard it around 3 a.m. when we were sleeping in the basement. The shell hit our house. I don't know what it was, but it shook the whole place. I was crawling around looking for my cane, wondering if we should stay put or run, while Lilia was covering her ears and screaming. Then, when we were sure the walls weren't coming down around us, she started crying. This would all be over soon, I hoped. But at that time, all I could do was hold her close. The very next morning, when the fighting had quieted down, I heard a knock on our basement door. Our neighbours came to visit us, the whole Merzion family, Milena and her parents. Alexei, Lilia. David, the father of the family, walked up to me and firmly shook my hand. How are you two doing? Are you all alright? We saw your house get hit. Thank the Almighty you went there. No kidding, I said. We have to leave, David. This is getting too dangerous. David's wife Ola chimed in. We can't leave Alexei Fedorovich. We've spoken with the Territorial Defense Office. They said it's too dangerous. There's already talk about Russians shooting at cars. I wanted to curse. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Sure, the war had been going on for 8 years now, but it was in Donbass on the edge of the country. Now the Russians were taking their planes and tanks and bombs all the way up to Kyiv. I shook my head. Tell me, did they take the Antonov airport? If they did, the road to Kyiv would be wide open. We'd be seeing thousands, if not tens of thousands of men and vehicles rolling out the next few days. No, my friend, they didn't. It's quite a story, really, David said, and motioned for his wife and daughter to carry on without him. They brought us some supplies and took them downstairs. David, meanwhile, told me the news. They had yet to make it on the TV. They had yet to make it on the TV, but the gossip had already spread around town. The Russians took the Antonov airport, but it's all shell to bits, unusable. They won't be landing anything there or using any of our planes. I gasped, and David cut himself off. He didn't need to continue. Maria too? It's gone? I've worked for the Antonov Design Bureau for 40 years. Aviation was my life. Still is, however, the little of it that is left in me. And nothing the Antonov Bureau ever made came even close to an AN-225 Maria. The biggest cargo plane ever designed. A marvel of engineering. Soviet, Ukrainian, it didn't matter. Maria was a treasure. I thought it was terrible waste, but it was barely flown in our 3 decades of independence. That day, I learned of a truly terrible waste. I felt a sting in my chest and clutched at it. David quickly rushed me to support me. He helped me sit down on the ground. I couldn't talk at first, so he continued. What a rotten world, huh? I told my girl to wait out the war in Hostomel, if it came. And now the war has come here. He reached into his jacket in a pocket. And before I knew it, there was a bottle in his hand. I was appalled at first, drinking at a time like this, but David kept talking. Nothing is sacred to these Russians. Destroying Maria is bad enough, but you know what they do to women? If the Russians get here, if they do, I can't calm my girls down, and I can't protect them either. I don't even have a gun. He reached to uncork the bottle, drawing my attention to it. It was the finest Armenian cognac money could buy. Let's keep a clear head. I'm sorry, David. I think we need a clear head. Save a bottle for a better time. Maria was a terrible loss. I didn't know what to think about it, but drowning my sorrow in alcohol was not an option. David was so sure the war would only last a few days. I said, surely his cognac was better spent celebrating victory. David frowned, but had to agree. He even told me to keep the bottle, that way he'd be sure it survived until our victory. He wasn't wrong there, I barely drank, and we never had any alcohol at home. So when I came to the basement to stash the bottle, Lily had some questions. It's a gift from David Mrizoyan. He said we'll open it when it's time to celebrate our victory, I said. I didn't tell her about the Maria. Lily gave me a sideways look, but soon realised that I was being honest. She smiled. That's a wonderful idea. Give him my thanks. I'm going to do 15-minute episodes for this run, I think. Because with it having no voiceover, it's going to grate on my throat some. I like this. It is showing the first-hand experience of Ukrainians in the first days of the Russian assault. I won't say you enjoy this because this is not enjoyable, but I hope it means something to you too. Slava Ukraini.